Hello world, welcome back to this channel. My name is Teacher Babian Mwita. In case you are new to this channel, make sure you like, comment, share and subscribe. Now today we're going to talk about Organic Chemistry 1. Organic Chemistry 1 is a very interesting topic in Form 3. So I expect you and urge all of you to pay attention as we'll be moving through this interesting topic. So we shall have our learning objectives. Number 1, we expect to know what this organic chemistry. So we shall define organic chemistry 1. Define organic chemistry. Our lesson objective number 2, define hydrocarbons. Define hydrocarbons. And classify them according to their structure and bonding. To their structure and bonding. Number 3, write molecular and structural formulae of alkanes, alkenes, and alkynes. Now, for today, we only major to talk about these 3 objectives: definition of organic chemistry, definition of hydrocarbons, and classification of them according to their structure and bonding. Structure and bonding, we all know that we had done it in Form 2. Write molecular and structural formulae of alkenes and alkynes. The keywords that I have underlined there is to enable us to know the deepest of the topic, our major concerns of today. Now, carbon itself, first we have to know that carbon forms many compounds. It forms many compounds. This because the reason as to why it forms many compounds, it's because reasons it bonds with all 4 valence electrons. So it can bond with a single covalent bond, single covalent bond to form a compound. Double can also form with a double covalent bond. Also triple. So that's the reason as to why it can form several compounds. So our major concerns of today is hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons. That is why I started by underlining as our lesson objective number 2, hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons. So we shall deal with it till the end. So I hope that all of us to stay tuned and engage accordingly. Now, what is this organic chemistry? How do we define organic chemistry? It's the study organic, sorry guys, sorry. Organic chem is the study of compounds, of carbon compounds, excluding the oxides of carbon and carbonates. So we study carbon compounds by excluding the oxides of carbon and carbonates. That means we are not going to touch any oxides of carbons or any oxides or any carbonate compound related to carbons. So by dealing with only organic compounds, they are going to study carbon compounds. Now, what are these hydrocarbons? Once more, these are compounds made up of carbon and hydrogen only. Hydrocarbon, we see that are compounds made of carbon and hydrogen only. As the name suggests, it's made up of hydro and it's also made up of carbon only. Hydro and carbon only. So were it that you find an oxide of compound inside this combination of hydro and carbon, then that means that that compound is not a hydro compound. If you find any compound related to carbonates, We have here carbonates, any compound related to carbonates. If we find any compound related to carbonates, then that means that that compound is not a hydrocarbon. Hydrocarbon are compounds made up of carbon and hydrogen only. Carbon denoted as capital C and hydrogen denoted as capital H. So there are several compounds made up of hydrocarbons, several of them. So these hydrocompounds are further classified into three categories, which we are going to talk of them. The three categories of hydrocompounds, which have only carbon and hydrogen molecules. So the categories of hydrocompounds that we have: hydrocarbons, we have alkanes, alkenes, alkynes. These are the three categories of hydrocarbons that we only have. We're going to measure on only these alkanes, alkenes, and alkynes, their characteristics and their properties that make them to be amongst the hydrocarbons. Remember, we say that our hydrocarbon consists of hydrogen and carbon only. So our alkanes, if you see any compound related to carbonates in and alkanes, that is not an alkane. Any compound related with carbonates and alkenes, that is not alkenes. Those are other compounds or other elements present in them, and that cannot be grouped as hydrocarbons. Now, how do we write the formula for alkanes? We write, this is the formula, capital C, small n, H, capital 2n plus 2. Then alkenes, capital CN, H, 2n. Then alkynes, capital CN, H, 2n minus 2. Some of you may be asking, what is this value n? N is an integer, and an integer can range starting with 0, maybe 2, 3, maybe 4, and etc. etc. An integer is a whole number and can never be a decimal, neither a fraction. So that's why it's called an integer. It can never have a decimal point. And sorry, don't misinterpret these as decimal points. I just said it can be 0, it can be 2, it can be 3, it can be 4, etc. etc. Now, what are the characteristics of these alkanes and alkenes and alkynes that make them to be grouped like that. So alkanes, first you shall have in mind that these are singular bonded, they have single covalent bond. We have alkenes, which are double covalent bonds, and we also have alkynes, which have triple covalent bond. So when the bond is single, we always call it saturated, and double, we call it unsaturated. So double, we call it unsaturated. Double, we call it unsaturated. And also alkynes have triple, we also refer it as unsaturated. So alkanes have this kind of a formula. We are going to engage in it in several ways, several examples. Alkenes too have this kind of a formula. Whatever differentiate them is that alkanes, you add 2 at the end. Alkenes, you don't add or subtract. It's like that. C, small n, capital H, 2n. And then alkynes, we minus 2. So that's their differences. And that's their physical, not really physical, but their properties that make them be grouped as hydrocarbons. They first have carbon and hydrogen. And that's the major key of hydrocarbons in this lesson till the end. The major key of our lesson, we will be considering capital C, capital H. That's carbon and hydrogen, of course. Want to see several examples of the names. We are moving at least a faster rate, but hoping that all of us are catching up something. Alkanes, we have alkanes in this category. We have alkanes here. We have alkynes here. So we call it methane. That's their first alkane, of course. It's called methane. And then we go to ethane. We go to propane, butane, pentane, number 5. Number 6, of course, is hexane. Number 7, we have heptane. Number 8, we have octane. Number 9, we have nonane. And number 10, we have decane. So we have this prefix ANES, alkanes. ENES, ins and wines, ines, in the, depending on the way you will pronounce. But in our first letter A, it starts, then here alkene, sorry, E is our first letter, and alkynes, Y is our first letter. So we shall consider them as we are going to write downwards. So we have we don't have methane, but we have ethene, sorry, ethene, propene, butene, pentene, hexene. Very interesting names as we can produce them or pronounce them. Hexene, heptene, we have heptene, and then we have octene, we have nonene, and we also have alkene. Alkynes, we have ethane, we don't have methane. This one we don't have the dashes. So we have ethane, we have propane, we have butane, pentane, hexane, heptane, octane, nonene, and decyne. So these are 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those are 10 compounds. As we started, our number one compound of alkanes is methane, number 2 ethane, propane, number 3. Alkenes, we don't have methane. Our number one begins at ethane. That's our number one. Remember that, to quote that as a very key thing. Our number one under alkanes begins with methane, and our number one begins with ethane. Propane, our number 2, in that order. Alkynes, we have our number 1 ethane, then propane, butane, pentane, in that order. Hoping that all of us are together and we are understanding the topic, hopefully. Now, where do we get these alkanes from? Remember we said that these are our hydrocarbons. Alkanes, for instance, someone asks you, where do you get now this methane? Where is its source? Where is the source of ethane, and so on? Where do you get the source? And remember, we also have major sources of alkanes. Where do we get these sources of alkanes? Where do we get these sources of alkanes? Where do we get? So let's discuss alkanes. Alkanes. So the sources number one source is natural gas. Crude oil,